Oh, we'll talk about a variety of things. This is one of those times when Dave and I were just musing, and we kind of set the stage for what we're going to discuss in the green room. This wasn't a prepackaged anything. It's just that so many things have shifted and we're evolving, and we felt as though it was time to express some of this. So I'm actually going to hand this back over to Dave because he's got some scientific things to help us put the nature things in perspective. And we can always, kind of circle back to the metaphysical translations. So, Dave, God, it's good to see you again, buddy.
Thanks. Just had to have a hit of water. Yeah, it's good to see you too. It's been a few weeks, man.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've been really busy, so thank you for the nice welcome. Uh, we were talking privately about staying in our lane and tending our own flame. This is why I like what we witness so often in any type of scientific discovery is people will hear something from somebody and pay close attention, do a little research, and then start talking about it. And it's like, man, but it didn't happen to you. You're just sort of regurgitating your version of how you inculcated and cognated that subject. So staying in our own lane and tending our flame. Then we were talking about science. My experience when I went to higher university to get into the mainstream gig and see what was going on there. I've been following Ben Davidson now since, I'm not I'm not like following because I know what's going on. But I first discovered Ben's site, Suspicious Observers, let's say that, uh, by recommendation of one of my neighbors here in Hermosa. And that was in 2012, which is, par for the course for 2012ers. Want to reset that calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben Davidson, showed up vicariously over the phone because by 2017 I was off, and then they realigned my neural net and they helped me have completely clear cognitive functions so that when I study any topic now, I can cognate it and understand it almost immediately and get involved with it. I think that's what got me through school, because um, after some amazing short conversations with my friends, uh, they had passed along thousands of pieces of information that would unfold later. And so Lowell and I were talking about the sun and bits of information about what people are hearing. And so we wanted to do a little clarification on that. And you guys know I'm a university trained astrophysicist. And because I wanted to study higher physics, cosmology, electromagnetism, which is really like the three main things. Oh, that's really great. Let's flick through these back to were you able to get the animation of both the magnetic wave and the animation of the micronova?
I don't know. I just saved in whatever format it was.
Well, let's just flick through the pictures and
Let's
I'll
flick
and I'll
through the
have you stop,
pictures.
right?
Okay, that's your subset. I didn't see any animation,
Okay,
but
that's fine.
who's
So
to
is that all?
say
Is that what you've got?
yes?
Okay, terrific. So let's start right here.
You want to go
So
back to the beginning or start here at the sun phase?
no, let's just start right there because I think that's the
Okay.
most important thing for people to look at. So what we're looking at is a solar observatory satellite image taken by NASA of a close-up detail of a sunspot. And so what I've done is I've not adjusted the photo at all, but I have clipped away the NASA stuff and clipped away the computer screen stuff off of the image that I collected. And I've got really high resolution on this. And if you guys look at the very darkest regions of that spot, there's two that look like owl eyes with a little kind of a line that comes straight down between them. And then over to the right upper, like 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock position, there's that really dark region right there. So that's basically black. It's a black reflective surface. Okay, because the sun's surface is solid. It is not an effusive, ever exploding hydrogen uh, gas plasma furnace. The sun is made from liquid metallic hydrogen, which is generated by the intense gravity and the intense stellar conversion ratio of very powerful, I'm talking hyper gigajoules of fission that's occurring. Now, this fissionable material is very, very, very hot. But we're going to talk about heat too in a second. Because the sun has a surface, it also means what? Like any planet, it has an atmosphere. All right. So when you look at those orange rope-like filaments coming off of that black or that very dark area, look closely at them. Each one of them is an individual flame, almost like a mini tornado. It almost looks like a hair on a head, doesn't it? Well, each one of those vortices that are spinning in a very intense, very gigantic singularity fashion are what I call cellular expansion and cellular ejecta. Now, the sun's surface is ever expanding. That's not the corona that I'm talking about, and it's not the plasma light that comes from it. The sun's surface is ever expanding, and what you're seeing is a spot that shows up when that expansion needs to release pressure. So think of your hair not just growing lengthwise, but think of your hair as growing right next to other hairs. So we have a human scalp has a very definite pattern of human hair growth. It's actually the Fibonacci sequence, and it starts with the very center of your head and spirals outward. All hair spirals, just like all the wonderful things on this planet and the universe. So those hairs are compacting, and that's from thousands of years of the effusive metallic gas that is ejected from the black carbon surface. That metallic gas converts to light energy as those hydrogen atoms split and divide and form different types of compounds that have a spectral photaic value. Now, the problem with looking at the sun today with astrophysics, because I studied it for 6 years and it was hell to get a degree in astrophysics. The problem with what we're looking at with the sun today, when you look at NASA and you look at other findings by NOAA or Copernicus Observer in Europe, doesn't matter if we're using ionospheric resonance wave theorem to measure fluctuations in the Earth's atmosphere based on photaic absorption ratios. And when we look at the sun, what they're telling us is that spectral light is hydrogen gas exploding, and it's not. Those ropes that are coming up like individual tornadoes represent the cellular surface of the sun. The sun has what can only be described as a hexagonal net or a mesh wrapped around this ball of carbon. Think of glass lattices that are hexagonal, like graphene. And indeed, what we're seeing are some of the other components of carbon being separated from that incredible fission that's occurring. So the blackness of the surface of the sun, if you could resist the heat and the tremendous radiation, would be like walking on 2 inches of very hot water with a hot black glass ball beneath your feet. It'd be like walking on a hot obsidian sphere with water on it. And just above, you've probably got 150,000 miles of space between that black glass surface and the bottom of those cells. Just consider that atmosphere that nobody ever talks about. Now, what's occurring in that atmosphere is the division and the fission of many different types of quantum subatomic particles. Muons and bosons, gluons and mesons are being formed, and they're recombining into new forms of atoms.
Okay, let me stop you for a moment, because before you say Mandelbrot, I want you to be mindful of what we said we wanted to do coming into this, and you're starting to use language that is going over even my head. And you got to dumb it down for us so we understand what you're trying to explain about the sun. Because up to now, I'm fascinated with it, but I already had an elevated understanding of it. We're here to help others, and I just want to remind you, Dave, bring it back down to our level. It's
Oh,
your turn.
listen. Yeah, okay. I appreciate all of that, Lowell,
Yes,
and
buddy.
I know that you're not acting like my handler. So I'm about to convert this conversation into what we were talking about. So you just have to let me finish this one little spot, and then it'll get a lot more simple.
Sweet.
All right. So these tornadoes and these whip-like structures that come up from the top of the atmosphere. All right. So you have this vast distance between the surface of the sun and the photaic light that you see. All right. So what they teach you in mainstream academia is that it's just hydrogen. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, use a little common sense about hydrogen. If that was a ball made out of gravitationally bound hydrogen molecules, it would have exploded. It wouldn't be existing. Right? So think about that. Like, go stick a match on an open hydrogen tank. No, don't do that, because I tell you what, you're going to take out a half a square block of buildings. And so, if the sun was made of hydrogen, it doesn't matter what the gravitational binding is, it would have penetrated the core of that and would have exploded. So it's not made out of hydrogen plasma. So what I want everyone to do is get your little pencil out and write down the following websites. Let me put on a little music. Da, 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 da. Okay, you got your pen and your pencil? I'd like you to write down the following names. Dr. Pierre Robitaille. Pierre, Pierre, Robitaille, Robettaille. He's a wonderful guy. He worked on developing the MRI machine, and he got them, with his knowledge of magnetism, was able to, and imagery, because he's a spectroscopist. He has a degree and he's a doctor. He talks about spectroscopy. And so he has a channel called Sky Scholar. So I want you guys to go on to Sky Scholar. I want you to hit the thumbs up, and his shows are absolutely amazing. They're full of anecdotal treats intellectually about what's going on with the sun. And Dr. Pierre Robitaille will be able to explain in layman's terms why the sun is made out of the surface of the sun is liquid metallic hydrogen. People don't think of gas as being a liquid metal that's on fire. I mean, think about it. So let's move on to why I showed this image in the first place. So when we see those big, huge plasma arcs of flames coming off the sun, and people go, ooh, and we know M-class flares, and we know X-class flares, the giant gamma release. When we look at those, remember that those are comprised of the hundreds and thousands of different types of exotic combinations of subatomic particles. And they burn off, and they whip out towards other planets, and they whip out towards the Earth. They break apart in space. Space is very cold. So they fall apart. They cools down. They exhaust their magnetic field strength. Thank God, because if we were any closer, we'd be getting electrocuted every day during a grand solar maximum. It wouldn't be Earth; it would just be a cinder.
Let
So
me know when you want to switch these images, Dave.
we're about to go there. So uh, go ahead and go back to the picture of the stellar nova. There you go. It's beautiful. All right. So what you have there is the result of a micronova. And you can see the center of the sun is bright, bright red. And the effusive off-gassing and particulation of those particles, which are now spent hydrogen and spent iridium and spent titanium and spent everything else that comes off the sun. Because remember, it's not just producing gas plasma. It's not just producing carbon from hydrogen. Otherwise, space would be full of smog and pollution. Do you understand? Those microscopic forms that you see as a cloud around that red sun are all going to be sent off into different directions in outer space and become part of new stars, become part of black holes, become part of other planets, and they will be delivering unbelievable wealth in exotic, fundamental, basic particles, which will help the beginning of new planets. So wonderful stuff every time there's a micronova, because it benefits all the planets. It benefits the solar system. Now, one of the problems with this kind of effusive off-gassing after the initial explosion or release of the shell, right? The black shell has got to be removed, because all of those giant plasma arches that fall back onto the sun are doing what? They're gravitationally bound to the sun because of its enormous size and strength. But whatever carbon was not released into space from the ejecta, from the burned metallic hydrogen, goes back to the surface. And this is that black glassy surface is actually liquid carbon that's at millions and millions of degrees Kelvin. So let's go to another one. Let's go to the bigger one where there's ropes. There you go. So what happens is we got Earth's lovely atmosphere with a little wispy cloud in the background. This took me several 4 or 5 hours to render with AI, and I had to use a lot of higher mathematics and a lot of conversational time with AI in order to get AI to cognate what burned hydrogen metal looks like. And so it looks like this. And this is the ejecta that reaches Earth after the explosion of the micronova. This is what people need to consider, is that there's going to be a vast, vast quantity of this graphene style net that's around this black hydrogen carbon surface that's going to be released from the sun. Now, it'll benefit some planets. It'll not be a benefit to Earth. It won't be a benefit to anybody, because what it does is it puts down a black layer across the entire planet, or probably 70% of the planet. It depends on the metallic content and the behavior of the magnetosphere at the time. But go ahead and do that other one now, back in the water. So no, not that one. That one. So when this iridium, carbon, hydrogen, metallic carbon burned surface is removed from the sun, because the sun can only stand so much weight. And so it's going to have to release this shell. And we all know that the sun is burning more brightly. It's more white. That diamond white color is rather alarming, actually. As an astrophysicist, I can tell you that we're not up in arms, but we realize what's coming. And so we know that the sun's going to have what people in this community, or the community, have been referring to as the flash. Well, look, it's not a flash. It's a very intricate process that takes many weeks. And the Earth is going to receive a large piece of energy a large piece of light and a large bit of the solar surface of the sun's surface. Because the sun is so enormous, there's going to be quite a bit of it. So this is what happens when those hot iridium, metallic hydrogen carbon spent fuel metallic pieces reach the earth. When it hits the water, it forms droplets. And this is, you can go back over millennia, and there are huge droplets of cobalt and huge droplets of iridium on the bottom of the seafloor. And, they're trying to harvest them because they're at 7,000 feet, 8,000
It
feet.
certainly explains the way not earth-bound material found its way to the planet.
Absolutely. So what we're looking at is the deposition of fresh water and the sea. Now let's go back to another one of those rope pictures. That's the good one. Okay. So this took me a long time to render. And what you're seeing are fine hair-like needles. And they get smaller and smaller, like asbestos. Now, we don't know how the Earth's atmosphere is going to be behaving after the solar flash, which is a micronova. We don't know how the Earth's atmosphere is going to behave. We know that there's going to be an electromagnetic and highly negatively charged ion plasma that will strike the Earth's magnetosphere and cause a bow shock wave of enormous proportions, almost, the final coup de grace to the electromagnetosphere, but it will bounce back. Now, it takes a long time to bounce back, and you can go through a polar shift at the same time. More than likely, the planet will flip its electromagnetic poles during the discharge of all this plasma energy that comes off the sun, but it is a micronova. The Earth gets through this, okay? This is not a huge, the sky is falling, I'm Chicken Little. Come on, guys, you know me, fuck that. Put your feet on the ground and think about this. You're not the only ones that have been getting messages about, finding a property with a cave on it. We've been talking about this for 20 fucking years on the internet. But Ben is the guy that stitched it all together, and he went into all sorts of interesting information about the Chan Thomas book, the Adam and Eve story that the CIA sequestered. And, the CIA has known about this micronova ever since its inception, for all of their big huggy group. Now, why they chose to manipulate us knowing that all this was going to go on, who knows? But it rolls off into many different fractal wells that I'm not interested in getting into. You guys call them rabbit holes. I call them fractal wells. They go on forever. You just fall down that well and you never find the topic you're trying to describe. So these needles are the end of the discharge. So what you're going to see is a very white sun. And right before the explosion of the surface, you're going to see the sun go dark. It'll go dark to like a dark purpley brown or a dark purpley blue. And it'll remain that way for 1 to 3 days, for up to a week, and probably not past a week. And that will be the effusive beginning of the type of light that's released off of the surface of the sun. The next thing that you're going to see is a bright flash. And hopefully you guys are under, I don't know, 100 feet of granite. If you're not resonating at the right level, this is going to go boom, and it's going to make you feel really stupid for a long time. And
Can
Ben
I ask you a
Davidson,
question, Dave?
in 2 seconds, Ben Davidson also put out several amazing documentaries on his channel, and you just go through his works, and you'll find the one that talks about how the solar flash affects people's pre-brain, which is what I've always discussed with you and your tribe. Right. And how this affects your cognitive centers and your cognitive functions. Something else I've also always discussed with you and your tribe, because this is something that all of us know about. That if you just do a little scratching on the surface and watch these very simple, wonderful videos, then you catch up with everybody else about, it is going to happen. It happens every 12,500 years. This is not fear porn. Right? This is just, be prepared.
Right.
But
assimilation.
So in finishing this is sort of the end result of what you see. It goes down eventually until there's nothing. And then it depends, nobody can tell you. And this is why I don't subscribe to the 3-year winter. This is why I don't subscribe to a massive Milankovitch cycle change. This is why I don't subscribe to a massive pole shift all at once in a 24-hour period. There's a lot of things that we don't know that's going to happen because I, quite honestly, as a scientist and as a spiritual person, have not been able to go through all of my ancient history to find any information that's been recorded by ancient civilizations about those behaviors. We all know it's going to flash. And then what happens after? We all survive. All the plants and animals survive. Everybody survives. So it's not something to go chicken little about, period. Now, the other thing I want you guys to write down is Professor Wal Thornhill. That's WAL and then capital THORNHILL. It's phonetic. Now, he has the Thunderbolts Project, and it's a group of young people and older people that are all scientists that know what's going on, and they talk about plasma energy. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Wal Thornhill, Pierre Robitaille, and Ben Davidson were all close friends because they're all 100 million times smarter than me. So, but I just wanted to show you guys what all that black surface was under the flames that we see on the sun. So that's a black metallic surface, and that's what the impactors are. And this is what they look like when they fly through the air. So, when it goes off, there is going to be parts of the planet that have an impact. There's, 60%, 70% is what I reckon. But, same thing is going to happen to Mars, Venus, and everybody around. But remember that this is something that's totally survivable, and it's by keeping hope and love and gratitude for all life in your heart every moment. Because what happens is when you produce joy, you resonate with Gaia and she takes you with her. So you don't have to worry about this stuff because all the animals are going to get saved, all the trees and jungles, the equator's going to shift, but we're all going to live. So it's a beautiful change. What's going to happen is it's going to get, I fantasize that everything that is scientific about this whole thing is actually going to be to our benefit and the benefit of all the animals in the planet and all of us, because I think this is part of the process that we have to embrace and be joyful about. This is not something to be afraid of. Anytime there's a great change in the solar system, I just am tickled pink that I might get to watch this, right? Because we've just lived in such an interesting last couple of 100 years. So that's it. That's my take on what it looks like after the sun goes pop and the kind of crap that comes down. I know a lot of people have tuned into Ben Davidson because of you and your show. So I'm done. So go ahead and chat away, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about all that.
Well, you're not done, and I know I'm probably just going to ramp you up again because I have a question. You were talking about the magnetic qualities of this black stuff,
Right.
and it made me think of some YouTube real-time videos I've seen recently after some type of seeding or something has taken place. And people have found this black stuff on their cars, which when they took a magnet out to it, collected the stuff. Now, can you tell me, do you see any correlation between what you were explaining to us and that phenomenon that I just saw?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so absolutely. I've actually been collecting that stuff and have given some to a company called Genentech up in UC Davis at Berkeley, and they're one of the leading medical science firms, which helps discover new cures for different forms of cancer because there's so many different types of cancer now. And so Genentech is a really interesting company. They don't test on animals, and I know one of the retired PhD bioengineers there. He's a fellow named John, and John and I actually met at Occidental when I was studying Indian music because he also had an Indian girlfriend, was studying Kabbalah as well. So we stayed friends all of our lives, and so I've taken the stuff up to him. So a lot of it is spent oil. A lot of it is petroleum pollutants that we generate in cities that only go up so high and then they drop back down because this oil, they're like the type of things they put into aerosol cans. It's very
What gives
fine.
it the
Okay,
quality
so
that would make it
it,
attractive as a metal?
it, it what it does is it actually collects subatomic and molecular sized particles of carbon and aluminum, and it makes them black, and they land on things. So we have this black surface. Now, also, what I found out from John is because he was able to put it into what's called a chromospectrometer. And so he burned it and he came up with some 166 different main components to this stuff. And I'm not releasing it because it's information that I've got that I have to collate and put into some sort of a book. But it's my study with John, and it has nothing to do with what I do. But eventually we'll release this information. So a lot of it is aluminum that they're spraying, and then what they're using is they're using ketones, and they take aluminum that's been oxidized, which brings it right down to a molecular level, and they mix it with a ketone, which is a form of oil aerosol, and it spreads out, and then it drops, and it kills tree roots. It causes tree roots to decay. It does all sorts of terrible things to humans. But this black stuff, it forms blackness. Now, the other part of this is brake lining from your brake pads. A lot of us in cities have this black shit that just ends up on all the windowsills of your business, all of the cars, the sidewalks, everything's got this coating of black on it. So we're being sprayed. That's dropping down. It's collecting carbon on the way down, which is, believe it or not, a good thing. And then by the time that acid ketone aluminum spray that the government sprays us all with, by the time it reaches the ground, it's oily black and it sticks to everything. Well, that combines with the brake lining, and that's another major constituent that we found on the chromospectrometer, was that many of the micro resins on a molecular level are the same constituent or same element components of what brake pads are made from. So that's how we know. So that's about 22%, which is alarmingly high, which means that, if you're a mom with a 3-foot high perambulator for your baby, you want to push your baby down the sidewalk next to an exhaust pipe or all this other crap. I think that children's perambulators should now be at least 4.5 feet up above the sidewalk. This is just from understanding all this. So that's the next thing I've got to invent on, is the 4-foot high perambulator that looks cool to have. Or just put your baby on a carrier and carry your baby like a mama. But yeah. So that's what that stuff is, and it's
Thanks.
nasty. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nasty.
Well, I'm not. I hadn't really seen it in any of the areas I was at that I recall. But having seen those YouTube videos recently, and somebody having a magnet like across the top of the car, and those particulates all being drawn to the magnet, something's not right.
Right, and that's such a great idea. You can put a magnetic strip and see what it attracts. Now, I'm telling you, just looking at this, is this image still up for everyone to look at?
Yes.
Okay, so it's like I'd much rather be bombarded with this stuff than I would with that fucking ketone that the government's spraying everybody with. I mean, it's brain damage central. So, this stuff, remember, the ejector that comes off the sun is all natural. It's not
Yes,
made
exactly.
it's not made out of chemicals. It's not made out of chemicals that humankind created. This is the blessing of a micronova. It's going to wipe out all these dirty bastards that are wrecking the planet. Sorry.
Well, those are
I
cosmic energies we're all
yeah,
attached to.
yeah.
Yes.
God bless karma, because where do you think those evil people are going, dude? God bless
They
karma.
they're stuck at the vibrational level they're at. And
Yep. See
the
ya.
good news for me is exactly. See ya.
Right.
All right. Well, I think we've covered what we want to cover, unless there's something you want to complete us with.
No, I'm still working on my projects, and it was nice to have a chit chat. I just want everyone to get it right. Don't listen to some guy on another show of somebody we all appreciate go, it's a solar flash when it happens. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not a solar flash. It's a micronova, for frick's sake. And if we do have an event before the micronova, it's going to be similar to the Carrington event. It won't be the Carrington event. People get it right. everything
Yeah.
changes. Everything changes. We don't know what's going to happen. All we gotta know is some of us feel very strongly that something like this is going to occur. And I just, I'm not afraid of anything anyone says about me after saying that because, I put it out there. You guys know about my background. I'm not worried about what people think of me. I got put in the front of the classroom because my teacher thought I was smart. So I'm just like, fuck you guys. So the mainstream
Yeah.
stuff we're all being fed is just getting worse and worse. Just turn on Pierre Robitaille, Sky Scholar. Check it out. He's a laugh. God bless his heart. He's such a smart, wonderful guy, and he makes it all so easy to understand. And I
Yeah.
think you're
They
trying.
offer a different perspective that people are at least open to consider. And
Right.
you're right about the comparing this to the Carrington event. I get the references. And so what that certainly set up is here's a historical, fact find that this occurrence has happened many times before and we're overdue.
Oh,
I
sure.
like the way you're thinking though, because everything has evolved since then. What is not to tell us that whatever's coming next is going to be bigger than the last time it came around?
Well,
That's what strikes me.
all right. So here's something I tell you right now. Uh, I'm gonna release information right now that no one has ever discussed, and it's not going to take long for you guys to figure this out. One of the things that some of the scholars that we follow, people like Ben Davidson, uh, one of the things that is not discussed is the magnetosphere's reaction. Now, I have a very close understanding of electrodynamics and the quantum level, how particles exchange and how they affect me personally very deeply. It's like lightning flashes. Who doesn't love going into a thunderstorm and getting a little wet and seeing beautiful lightning displays? I mean, it's just so beautiful. Who doesn't love that? So I have a very close connection to that. And, I think that's my second favoriteest way to go is to get hit by an enormous thunderbolt and just like, where'd Dave go? I don't know. What's that weird smell? So, so what I do know is that uh, when we look at the Earth's magnetosphere, and you'll hear guys like Ben say it's in a weakened state. Well, he's not fear mongering. It is the Earth's magnetosphere, the electromagnetosphere, that shroud that looks like an electric blue net that you always see in pictures, science pictures of the magnetosphere. It is at a weakened state. The poles are shifting. There's a huge electrodynamic shift of exotic energies coming at us. And you and I have discussed many times about the different environment that the Earth is shifting into at the acquisition and passing of Aquarius. There's a lot of different energies coming and a lot of different electricities coming at the planet. So my theory that I'm going to tell you right now, guys, is that when the sun goes pop and the micronova occurs, the Earth's magnetosphere is going to go pop. And it's going to get really strong, stronger than anything that anyone's ever seen. And this goes back to my earliest days with Kim Jim and Weimer of understanding the relationship of two electronic particles and how they're bound together with the plasma in between them. This is known as a polarized or a dipole electromagnetic relationship. All electricity has this. Envision these two electromagnetic spheres that are glowing white and blue, and in between them is this beautiful sort of metamorphed light plasma that holds them together and is being stretched out like a rubber band, but they're still bound to one another. Right? So this is the image that you have to have. So when the sun releases the carbon shell, guess what? It's also going to release a multi-trillion gigajoule electrical discharge, right? You can't even conceive what a gigajoule is. Boy, I tell you, if you ever saw a gigajoule go off, you better be 1,000 miles away because it'll plasma or furnace burn everything around it. So gigajoules come off the sun in heaps and gobs. Let's just say it that way. Keep it simple. And so that gigajoule is going to be just what our magnetosphere needs to have the dipole electromagnetic response, positive and negative, not positive and positive, not negative and negative. So we're going to have a dipole positive negative union. And that spark, which travels faster than the speed of light, will embolden our electromagnetosphere and protect us from the blast. So we will receive a minimum amount of gamma radiation. This is my closest imagination of what the outcome will be for us, is that when the sun goes pop, well, it happens every 12,500 years. It'll keep happening every 12,500 years, far out, because Mother Earth is going to protect us. And the electromagnetosphere, which is being shown as very weak, will all of a sudden become one of the most powerful electromagnetospheres around any planet in the galaxy. Because it's so close to the sun, it will have that union response between Earth and the sun, and it will be returned to its former glory. So don't worry about any of the stuff that people are talking about, everything being doom and gloom. It isn't at all. This is a beautiful change, which is going to be an amazing thing to survive, an amazing thing to watch. And it's just going to be terrific. You should feel good about this gift.
That is a great perspective. Thank you for sharing that because it tracks with me. So I'm going to just leave it right there and hope that people will ponder the very end of this particular recording, because where you left us, Dave, is exactly, boy, it just feels like that's a more likely outcome. And so thanks, buddy. Always good to talk with you. Appreciate your time.
Hey, it's great to catch up. I mean, sorry it's been so long, and we were going to try and stay in touch and sort of share with our friends in your community what we're finding out. And you have some amazing stuff coming up that you're going to release too. I'm so excited for you about your conversation and your trip, and look forward to hearing more about it and really your personal intuition rather than what anyone else said. Just maybe it'll be nice to hear what you have to say about the whole thing, and then what your intuition is, because we're really here to listen to that aspect of our friendship with you too. So thanks for everything that you're doing out there, and keep holding up your end of the field, man. It's working. Everybody keep loving your heart. It's all going to be good.
Thanks, pal. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. God bless.